recording?
Mm-hmm.
Can we start?
You can start whenever you want, because I'll edit you out.
You'll edit me out. What's going on, Nacogdoches, Texas? Welcome to episode 77 of season 5 of Talking Throws podcast, Texas style. I'm Coach Jason.
And I'm Coach Janelle.
And guys, I missed last week, so I apologize for that. But we're back in our dynamic duo this week. So thank Bruce Caldwell for doing that episode, and I hope y'all enjoyed it with Janelle running solo on that. So, hey guys, we are throws coaches with the Throwing Factory. You can go to check out that website, thethrowingfactory.com. Remind everybody that we're actually doing lessons through the fall. We're about to start our off-season program. We're going to start getting ready for recruitment for our January indoors. So if you're a young thrower, a high school thrower, wanting to get ready for indoor meets that will carry you into your high school season, please reach out to us. All our information is on the thethrowingfactory.com website. Remind everybody, too, that if we don't fit your needs, I have Coach Kai Smith, who runs west at the Throwing Factory. I have Coach Jarvis, who runs east at the Throwing Factory. And then we also have Morgan Knight, who runs Night Performance, our power and performance out of Abilene, Texas. So javelin, weight, hammer, glide shot put, rotational shot put, discus, anything you need in the throwing area, we can take care of you on that. For our season 5 sponsors, without them, we can't do what we do. We thank them so much. Texas Track and Field Coaches Association, Stuart Canner, we love you, man. TTFC.org for everything in Texas track and field. Indoor meets are already getting scheduled for 2023. Texas Relays date has already been posted in March. The state meet's already been posted on there. So if you have questions about calendar for next year for 2023, go to ttfca.org and find the meets and the answers to your questions. 4throws.com, quality implements priced right. The Heels are great people. You can go to that website, 4throws.com, use the code TalkingThrows10 to get 10% off. If you're looking for shots, discs, javelin, hammers, gloves, anything you need in the throwing aspects of it, mobile portable nets for discus or anything like that, go to 4throws.com and just be sure to use that code TalkingThrows10 to get your discount. Porta-Circle, making throwing more accessible. That's porta-circle.com. Use the code TalkingThrows10. With the heat, if you're looking to get some extra throwing inside in the gym, the Porta-Circle is a great tool to use. If you're experiencing some snow and some cold weather, which we were, then that's great to do indoors, whether it's going to be in a garage or in a hallway or anything like that. So then Ready Up Athletic Development, ran by Zach Phillips. His cell is 512-507-8347. If you're in the Austin area and you're looking for a guide to give individual instruction for Olympic lifting, to develop a program for you that's going to get you to the next level, whether you're playing select soccer or you're playing club volleyball, or you're a baseball player or a golfer or a thrower, anything you need, workout related, Olympic lifting related, performance based, Zach Phillips, a guy. That cell phone again is 512-507-8347, or his site is readyupad.com. Then Fiber Sports Discus. Welcome to No Way to Get the Distance. You can go listen to episode 76 to get some really good information on that. You can go to that website, fibersportsdiscus.com. It's just not about the rim weight anymore. So we appreciate that. Then also, too, follow us and give us a thumbs up or thumbs down on our YouTube channel, please. And then also, too, our shopping page has some new shirts, some tank tops, some long sleeve shirts, some cutoffs, on the shopping page of thethrowingfactory.com. So, guys, today's guest was raised in Fort Worth, Texas. He won 2 national championships in 2021 and 2015. He's coached over 38 All-Americans. He just retired from coaching from 35 years, with most of that being as the director of track and field from Stephen F. Austin University. Please welcome to episode 77, season 5, Coach Phil Olson. Thank you so much. So we're very grateful for you being on.
We're excited.
It's an honor to have you on. We're going to start a little bit different today. We're going to start kind of current and work our way back.
Okay, so you're going to throw me right into it, huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And first obvious question is, how's retirement and what you've been doing with all your free time so far?
Well, it hadn't exactly been free time. I was on the mower for about 4 hours today, so it hasn't been quite that, but it's been wonderful. Retirement's great, and my wife is getting used to me being at home, and Donna she's an independent contractor. She's an athletic trainer, so she's home part of the day and works part of the day. So she's getting used to me, and I definitely have some honeydews that I have to take care of. But she's been great, and so retirement has been just wonderful.
Awesome.
So I think the first month I did a lot of celebrating. And I actually just started trying to get my health back and try to get, back into some semblance of shape and order. And so that was July, and we did a lot of traveling in July too, which was wonderful. And then now in August, I'm very strong in my faith. So this has been a heavy duty spiritual month for me. And so it's kind of like a month-long retreat for myself. At least that's the way I kind of put it. So not doing any traveling, stay at home, working for the church a lot, going to mass a lot, and just doing a lot of praying. So,
Well,
yeah.
You deserve a good retreat. You put in a lot of years.
Well, it has. I mean, it's,
Right.
Some you read about, and they've been going at 45 to 50, it's never that was not me, but because I got started a little bit late. I mean, I didn't start coaching till in my late 20s, I guess, and so it's been 35 years. I counted up total wise. So it was a good run. It was definitely a very positive experience, and man, I love coaching. I love the kids, and but at some point we all have to say, it's time, and it was my time. So I could see it. I could see the writing on the wall. So, but it was a good departure.
Yeah. A lot of prayers to make that decision, correct?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And, a lot of come to Jesus moments, and trying to figure out, okay, what am I going to do? And my original intent was to retire after the 2023 season.
Okay.
But it was just hard. I turned 60 this year, and I know people work into their 70s, 80s, and 90s. But I think the big thing is I've always tried to work at a high level, and when you can't work at a high level like you're used to, it's time to say, okay, somebody else needs to guide this ship, and I'm going to step off and let somebody else do it. And that's kind of how it came about. So,
gotcha.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, so do you have still intentions to maybe do some coaching on the side, like for, because I know you have a strong background in throwing and stuff. Is that something you're maybe looking to do in the summers with your free time after you kind of get everything kind of organized, or you just got to kind of take it one day at a time?
Well, to be honest, Coach, I mean, I did my time, and I love coaching, and there's some great coaches out there, yourselves included, and some great young coaches out there. And, I think I'm done. I think that God is other plans for me, and he hasn't dictated what those are yet, but whatever that is, I will give my utmost. But I think it's time to turn a new page in my life and do something different. And I have no idea what that is. I have a lake 2 miles from my house. If I want to go to the lake and just jump in the water and get out and drive home, then that's probably what I'm going to do. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes.
Awesome. Awesome.
That's awesome that you don't have a plan, because in my mind, then God can use you in whatever way. You're open to whatever He has for you, Coach, and that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, somebody told me, they said, Phil, the first thing that you need to do when you retire is tell people no. So I've gotten used to telling people no, or just delaying that, and just saying, okay, talk to me, call me in August is kind of in the watchword. And then September, I think things will get normal, and then we'll just kind of go from there.
Wow. Well, let's get into that great coaching of the Stephen F. Austin Lumberjacks. You've coached over 40 championship teams. You won 2 national titles at Stephen F. Austin. You've had tremendous amount of All-American success. Talk us through, what kind of kids that you brought into the Stephen F. Austin to kind of catapult that, and, kind of your coaching philosophy, but also some of the great coaches that you worked with while your time was at Stephen F. Yeah,
I mean, and Coach, you're exactly right. I mean, it's not so much myself, it's the people that we have here. And I've had an absolute wonderful group of coaches that I've worked with in the last 20 plus years. And our young men and women in our program have been just superlative. And it's just I've been so grateful when I announced my retirement, to the point of retirement, is just hearing from those young men and women, and they're not so young anymore, but and just talking to them, and just thanking them, and just thanking everybody that has been involved in this program for the last 23 years. And it hasn't been easy. I mean, it's never easy. And success, it took, going back to the beginning, it was really hard to kind of get going, and we kind of tried to figure what our niche was going to be, because here we are in Nacogdoches, Texas. We're 3 hours, 2.5 hours, 3 hours from Dallas, 2.5 hours from downtown Houston. And so what are we going to do, and how are we going to do it? And so it took a while, and then here we jump to now, and I think we've attracted a lot of young men and women in different event areas, and some who were maybe not at the elite level coming out of high school, but were just grinders and workers, and highly recommended by their coaches, and had a great work ethic, had great character. And I mean, those are the ones that you really kind of wrap your not wrap your fingers around, but you hug on and appreciate them. And then, for a long time, I think the most foreigners we had on our team was probably 1 or 2, and they were from Arkansas, from Oklahoma and Louisiana. I mean, that's as far as they came from. But now we've attracted more foreign athletes so we've gone internationally. And I think that if you're going to compete at a national level, you just have to do that. And I mean, we grounded out for years and years, just Texas kids. 95% of our kids are from the state of Texas, but now, I mean, everybody does it. So, and that was something that we just finally just said, okay, let's see how this goes. And, obviously we've had some great coaches here who have done most of the recruiting, and, I just pay for lunch and dinner and, pat them on the back and thank them for coming. But it's been good. It's been really good.
Yeah. Now, as the head coach, you also coach the throws, right?
I did up until 2 seasons ago. I got to the point. So it's that process, and that progress of figuring out, okay, how am I gonna do this? How am I gonna continue to do this? So I basically 2 years ago, I hired Andy Glass, who came to us from South Carolina upstate. and he has done a phenomenal job with our throwers. And so it was a sink or swim type deal for me. I had to get some help, and I have found in the last few years that it's getting more and more difficult because to be a director of track and field or head track and field coach, and also coach some your individual event groups. So in the last 2 years, I first of all, I fired myself. So I fired myself from being the throws coach and hired Andy, and that was just great having Andy come in. And then so I started working. The irony of it is I started working with the multis in the throws, and then training our decathlete Asani Hilton in his strength training, and that's how I started. Really? I came out of graduate school. Well, I went to graduate school to a program at the University of Virginia that was the master's program was geared towards training athletes, and so it had obviously it had strength training and conditioning. It had exercise physiology. It had biomechanics. It had sports psychology, sports nutrition. And so that's how I got started. And then I had an opportunity working with the track and field team. They said, "Hey, why don't you come out and hang out? And since you were an old thrower, why don't you come and watch some of our multis and help them out?" So that's what I did while I was in grad school. And that's how I got started. And that's ironically how I finished up working with some really terrific guys and ladies, our multi-events program, which has been really strong the last 2 or 3 years. And I'll tell you this, I didn't get fired one time. There are moments when Coach Frenchie had about enough of me and how I do things. But he was very kind and generous and allowed me to finish my career coaching those kids. But it was a lot of fun.
So you did a lot of multi stuff. Did you coach? I'm just kind of curious for big picture. Did you coach any of the distance runners? You had to have your hands in everything, but really kind of jump in, head first with your distance runners or some of your triple jumpers or any of that. Did you coach any of that stuff over the years as well?
No, not at all. Okay. I mean, I think you have to make a decision. And I came to SFA as a throws coach, and that's what I was going to do.
Okay.
And because there's a lot better people out there than me who can do the job. And my job was to hire the very, very best person I could to coach those other event areas. And we've had some great coaches over the years who are either now really successful high school coaches or very successful coaches at the collegiate level. So, I mean, I was just thankfully lucky and fortunate and gifted with these terrific coaches. So my job really for many years was to coach the throwers, which, as you know, I mean, on most days it's a 4 to 6 to 8 hour day. And then just try to hang on for the rest of it. So yeah, all the problems that come up, all the administrative stuff that comes up, all the preparing for meets and that sort of thing, travel, obviously I delegate, but I'm a hands-on person, and I've always tried to delegate responsibilities, but at the end of the day, it falls on me. So I'll find something that one of my coaches is good at besides, their priority is to recruit and to coach. And then after that, it's a trickle down effect. So, that's basically what I did. But more and more in the last 2 years, I took on, it just seemed like I took on a lot of the administrative stuff, the travel. Surprisingly, I did very little recruiting because I didn't have my own event group anymore. The philosophy of this program has always been at SFA has always been that it's not my program, it's our program. So it was never about me as a head coach sitting there having this big meeting with the kids and their parents. It's all about, hey, let's go have dinner. Let's go have a good time. And let's talk about SFA, because in our program, in this program, it was the assistant coach who, it was their program. So my cross country coach, our cross country coach, that was his program. So he ran that. My jumps coach, that was her program. She ran that. And I just backed her up, or I backed him up. And that's just how I chose to do it. And I know that there are other ways to do it, but I think that really worked. That really worked best for me, because I'm not a micromanager. I'm going to hire good coaches. They're going to recruit and coach their rear ends off, and because I'm going to coach my rear end off and try to recruit my rear end off. So it's a group effort, definitely. I was going to grab both hands, but I'm holding one hand. I'm holding my phone in one hand. I couldn't do it. So.
You can put the phone there and down too.
Yeah, if I drop the phone, then you'll think, then I'll be more like John Madden. May rest in peace. But
I understand that.
So yeah,
understand that. Is there a couple of your highlights which you remember with your throwers that you want to share? Because I printed out your records, for the girls and the boys, and like John Arthur, almost 64 feet in the shot put for outdoor. Clint Harris, 184.8. You have a female thrower that almost went 52 feet, and a hammer thrower went 187.4, which are huge marks. Is any of those marks or any of those throwers that accomplish great stuff stand out to you?
Well, I think, they all stand out in a certain way. I mean, the best athlete I've ever coached, the best person that I've ever been in my life has been Cammie Stockett. Honestly, she's the best athlete, the smartest person. Her mom is terrific.
Exactly. Yes.
And so I knew you were going to ask that question. So I said,
funny.
well,
No.
number one, it's Cammie Stockett. Number two, Cammie Stockett, and the third best would probably be Cammie Stockett, but
yeah, no, we know better. We know Cammie was it.
I was going to wait till the end to ask. I wanted to know how you handled the overbearing mom that was always hounding you. I wanted to know how you answered.
I was just at every meet. I brought food from every time we went to Waco or drove by. Oh my gosh, the place in West. I brought
kolaches,
bread to the kid. I was a good teen mom for those years.
Well, wait a minute. Well, I never got any of that. I never saw any of that.
That's probably true. I think they were told, don't let Coach Olson see it. So I had to hide it.
See, now the truth comes out. Just think,
there you go.
You could have probably won a couple extra conference championships.
There you go. Yeah.
I have not been feeding fattening stuff to all your throwers.
Actually, Coach, you were great, because if Cammie wasn't having a good day, I mean, you'd be like, "Oh, God, what's going on with her?" And you and I are sitting there going, we're like two coaches, yes. And then you have to go over and you have to play mom, and then and deal with that. So if Cammie knew we were talking about her, she would probably flip her car, officer's car.
I'll
patrol
tell her to
car.
Listen to this episode so she can at least get her name on it.
Yeah, she'll probably try to erase it somehow. But getting back,
but the real good athletes, not her.
Well, I mean, so you look at the records, and you look at and obviously there are programs that are far superlative that what we've done. What we've tried to do is, I've always kind of had the mentality of, it's conference first, then it's nationals. And I think some of that is just kind of that's the way I've always tried to do it. We're going to do the very, very, very best job that we can at the conference meet. If we have somebody to make it the nationals and can do something at the national meet, then great. That would be wonderful. So over the years, and I think probably the high end around the time between probably 08 and 14 or 15 were probably the best the best years. Some of our best throwers early on from a national standpoint was probably Blake Gordon in the discus, who threw like 170 her junior year and made it to nationals. Fred Nisha Marshall was an absolute tremendous athlete. And, you know, if you knew Fred Nisha always had injury issues. And she's about a 46-foot shot putter coming out of Texas. She fouled all three of her throws at the regional meet. So she did make it to the state meet her senior year. She was heartbroken by that. So when she came to SFA, the first year or two was try to figure out what she was going to be good at. And really her best was the weight throw. And this was back, I think she made it to nationals twice in 09 and 010. She was third in the nation at 69 feet, which at that time was pretty dang good and still is good. You know, anytime you get around 70 feet, that's amazing. And then, so when we get to the outdoor season, she was always hurt. And so we could never get her healthy through an outdoor season, but she did manage to throw 187 feet off of 2 turns, which you can do that off of 2 turns, I mean, that's pretty special.
Yeah.
So she is probably the best athlete I have coached on the women's side. And then Caitlin Andrews, her teammate Caitlin Andrews, came down from Canada. She went to the World Juniors in Beijing, representing Canada. She was a really good signee for us, and it took her a while to get going. And I think her senior year, her 4th year, she sprained her ankle and missed the whole season, and came back on her 5th year and did really well for us. Conference champion, school record holder, and so she was always a really good athlete for us. And then on the guys' side, I mean, we had a string of guys there that you know, it started with James Williams and Kenneth Mckinley. And Kenneth Mckinley came to us his mom took him to every junior Olympic meet, and he threw the javelin, he threw the discus, he threw the shot. And, you know, he was a good, solid javelin thrower, had a good arm. But I really thought he'd be a great discus thrower. And so when he came to SFA, I said, okay, we're going to switch you to the rotational shot. And he just struggled and struggled and struggled. And I think that we stuck with that. We stuck with the rotational shot through 2 indoor seasons. So indoor, outdoor, and then we were in early into his 2nd year, and we were at LSU.
Uh-huh.
And he just looked so out of place. And I said, okay. And so I said, come over here. And so he came over. He was just beside himself. And I said, go back to the glide. He goes, okay. And from that point on, I mean, his numbers went up. He was a conference champ his senior year. And the funny thing is, you know, he was very much a linear thrower. I mean, javelin, shot. He never really made it as a phenomenal discus thrower like I thought he would. He'd kill me if I said that, you know, out in this format. But he's doing other things now. But he was just a really good overall athlete. And then James Williams came to SFA, developed really well, hurt his back, and then really kind of struggled to push through, but he did well enough. And then John Arthur was probably the best. Darwin Johnson, that was one. Darwin Johnson was pound for pound probably the best thrower I ever coached. He's from John Tyler High School. He was he was probably 5'10", maybe 215, maybe 220.
Oh, wow.
And threw over 180 feet. And I mean, an unbelievable squatter, unbelievable power clean, unbelievable bench press, and but not a big guy, just a tremendous athlete. So Darwin was one of those guys. And then John Arthur did everything really well. He wasn't much of a discus thrower, but I asked him to throw the disc, and it took him, he was another guy that was a glider in high school. It took him about 2 years to develop the rotational shot. And by his third year, he was at nationals and just doing a lot of unbelievable things. And then made him throw the hammer. He hated the hammer, but he kept at it. And then he won his last year. He won the conference in both. So in the hammer and in the outdoor shot and the indoor shots. So, and then Trenton Bridges, another one, 210 to 212 in the hammer. And Andy would get big credit for that, because I got the difficult years with Trenton. Trenton's a Yoakum kid. So if you know David Markert down in Yoakum, he has his hands on everybody. And so he was Trenton was one of Coach Markert's boys. And we were fortunate to get Trent, because he looked and acted like a big discus thrower, but he developed into a really fine hammer thrower. So there's been some really good ones. I mean, if I touched on them all, and somebody's going to get mad at me since I forgot them. But anyway,
I do have a question. Getting back to Fred Nisha, she was a thrower, shot and disc coming out of the state of Texas. You said earlier that's predominantly where all you recruited. How did you assess this thrower? Maybe saying, okay, I think they're going to be a hammer thrower. And I bring that up because, as you know, currently in the state of Texas, predominantly shot and disc. Recruiting for hammer in the state of Texas is not that much. I am trying to change that and grow the sport of hammer throwing in the state. But I'm curious, as a former coach who's been around for a long time, how would you assess a shot put discus thrower to say, okay, they might be a good hammer thrower on a female side, especially, but maybe even on the boys side as well?
Well, I think what you've seen, and bless you for trying to push that along, because I mean, how many sports are there where you don't know what you're going to get until they're there? How many athletic events are like that? There's just not. And so sometimes I think it certainly wasn't that I was smart enough to figure it out. I think that what it was is, if coaches will take the time to observe and watch and get a feel and try them out. I mean, that was the great thing about watching Dave Woolman coach, is Dave Woolman would try the great SMU coach. He would try them in different events and then focus on their one event or two events. And that's what we would try to do. And okay. One thing that I think we've gotten away from as a coaching body, and I don't know if the young coaches do it as much, but I test it all the time. I mean, we tested, our strength levels, absolute strength levels, power, output, everything. And we did it at least 2 to 3 times a year. Some would do it during the season, but I got away from it before the season started. But just to get a feel, because if your testing goes through the roof, if your testing you're showing marked improvement each season, I mean, that's what an athlete does. And it's a great marker to be able to show these athletes, hey, look, this is where you are right now. This is where you were a year ago. And so it could go both ways. You could bring your athlete in and say, look, your standing long jump is phenomenal here this year. Look, you've improved by 2 or 3 feet from last year. Your vertical jump is so much better. And the example that I have is Adam Wolf. Adam Wolf was a guy who walked on to the baseball team at SFA.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't work out for him. So he came to me and he said, "Hey, coach, I heard I could throw the javelin in college. What do you think?" I said, "Well, come out and I'll test you." So I tested him in the back overhead throw. I tested him in standing long jump. I tested him in the 3 hops. I may have done the 30, but my guess on. And then I had him throw a football. And I would have cut him if I didn't see him throw the football because he showed no athleticism at all. Well, here's a guy that came in and he worked and he worked and he worked and he worked. And he ended up being a 70 meter javelin thrower.
Wow.
And the reason for that was all his performances just went through the roof. He got better at everything over time. And so, and then on the other side of that, on the other side of the coin, if an athlete is not producing, if they're not showing the abilities that you thought that they should have, you can easily say, "Hey, your squat levels are off by 30 pounds. What's going on? What is it a motivational thing? Is it a personal thing? Whatever." And so I think using testing tells you a great deal. And with going back to your specific question about Frednisha, if you looked at Frednisha, if she walked into a room and you saw her, you would go, "Okay, I see." Because she's an athlete.
Yeah.
And funny story, real quick. She works at White House High School, and she doesn't coach there. She's just a teacher. If they knew that she was a great athlete, they'd probably have her out coaching tomorrow. But she does one. I think she's in her 2nd year. So folks at White House, please don't tell. But
you have a coaching job.
Frednisha Jackson, she's married now, and she and her husband and daughter came to dinner last month, and we had a wonderful time. But she told me that, and I was like, "How in the world are you not coaching?" And she said, that's just not where I want to be right now. I want to do things in the classroom. So to answer your question, it was just experimental, Jason. It was just putting a weight in her hand, putting a med ball in her hand, and see what she could do off of 1 turn, off of 2 turn, off 3 turns. We tried her in 3 turns, we tried her in 4 turns, and then we always dropped down to what she felt comfortable with. And she threw almost 70 feet off of 2 turns and 187 off of 2 turns. So she just had a lot of power. A lot of power. So.
I'm glad you brought up the testing, because while you were talking earlier about all the roles that you played and hats you wore, I was I wondered if he ran the strength and conditioning for the track program. So did you run? Did you have that hat on as well? And even for your throwers, did you do their own strength and conditioning?
Initially, I did. I had done it all throughout my career until I came to SFA, and then it was like, "Oh, we have a strength coach." Okay. So we sat down with the strength coach, and I continued to write our programs. I don't know how long until we got a new strength coach in, and he and I worked out a deal where they would write up the program, and then, when I wanted to throw my 2 cents in, I would do that. I think it's very rare now that coach, it has to be a special situation where your throws coach actually has the opportunity to write their own programs. As a director, it was too difficult for me to do that and coach and be a strength coach. So no, I didn't do it for the entire team.
Okay.
I did it just for the throwers. And then somewhere between '05 and 2010, I backed away from it and got more hours in my day to do other things, I guess. I don't know.
Last question, training to the testing, because I'm curious, because that's right up my alley. Did the jumpers or the sprinters do some of the same testing, big picture, as your throwers? So you wanted to do the overall assessment of power. I'm curious, did you do the same stuff for your sprinters and jumpers that some of the throwers were doing?
Well, I think they all tested it. Yeah, they all tested
Okay.
at a different time. But as far as me stepping in and say, hey, we're going to test everybody on this day. We're going to do this, this, and this. No, that's me stepping into my sprint coaches or my jump coaches realm, and I'm not going to do that. So all I needed to do was say, okay, this is what I want to test. This is the time of year I want to test, and I want to see where we are, and then I want to go. I want to go from there. So, yeah, sometimes we test at the beginning when they come in at the end of August. Then we test again 8 weeks later, and then we test right at the end of the semester. So you might get 3 tests, you might get 2 tests. I don't know, but just having had my basis as a strength coach and designing programs, I worked under really a phenomenal coach, John Gamble, at the University of Virginia. And he was a world powerlifting champion. If you look up John Gamble's name, and you'll see what a special guy he was. And he was just a sweetheart of a man, and worked in the NFL for years. I think he's still probably in the NFL with player personnel, but he was a wonderful mentor and teacher and coach for me. So I learned a great deal from him.
Welcome back, track people. This is Brandon, owner of fourthrows.com. We're a fast and growing track and field company that specializes in the throws. With our speed shipping, implement warranties, and rock bottom prices on javelins, discuses, shotputs, and hammers, call us up today to talk directly to one of the owners at fourthrows.com.
Awesome. I want to ask you about you mentioned it earlier, your philosophy.
Here comes the mom question.
No, it's not really.
No, I'm joking.
So you're as a mom, though, just when I think about it, of one of your athletes, the team culture. I mean, 29 Southlands Conference Championships. And I do remember going to those meets and everybody's cheering everybody on. Not just, they had a great family of throwers, but all the different events, cheering people on to win those conference championships. So what did you do way back when to kind of build that culture of your team that helped to make all that successful? I know you said about hiring great coaches and all that, but was there anything you were like, this is what it is that
kind of build a family?
Well, yeah, that all kind of stemmed from being in positions at my previous schools where I didn't feel that team concept was very important. And I think I probably told myself over and over again the 10 years or 13 years between starting as a grad assistant to finally becoming a head coach that I wanted to make track and field a team sport and not an individual sport. And how did I do that? So when I came to SFA, I mean, one of the first things we do is we put eyes on each other and we see each other. So we had team meetings every week, and it's everybody. And you say, well, some schools, they don't. Some schools, they may meet once a semester or twice a semester. But the reason I had the team meetings was not to hear myself speak, because it was. But we had stuff that we needed to get straight, and we wanted everybody to be on the same page. We wanted everybody to know, one, how much we cared for them, how much we loved them, how much God loved them, but also, two, how difficult this chore was going to be and how difficult this train was going to be. And I always likened it to a train. A train is never going backwards unless it absolutely has to. A train is either stopping and people are going to get on, or they're going to get off, but the train is always moving forward. And that's what I always try to hit over the head of our team is we are going to be a team and not a bunch of individuals on a team. We're going to look out for each other. We're going to be good teammates. We're going to care for each other. We're going to lift each other up. We're going to put the thumb down hard if we need to. And I think when you do that, I mean, anybody can tell a team, hey, when we go to the meets, you're going to come out and you're going to cheer for each other. And you can threaten the team to do that. But I think you see the difference between the teams that actually do that and are threatened to do that. And we were certainly not perfect. Did we have the perfect team bond? No, I don't think we did. I think it was always a process that we tried to get better at. Some years were better than others. And sometimes, and, you know, I'll fully admit, sometimes we were so busy trying to straighten out the issues that we had on our team that we kind of lost sight of that. We're always trying to work. And what I mean by that is we're always trying to get better as a team from a team concept. And sometimes one or two individuals can really hurt that team. And one thing I would say that I am is I'm very patient with our young men and women are used to be. And we have a lot of second chances, rarely third chances. But we encourage our young men and women to be successful. We encourage them to work hard and know that this is one of the toughest things that they'll ever do. But at the end of the day, at the end of their life, or during when they leave us, they're going to have some difficult challenges in their own lives that were made easier because of what they went through here. And I have one of my favorite sayings is misery loves company. Say if we're going to be miserable, if we're going to work hard and be miserable, we're going to be miserable together, but it's for a common goal, and it's for a common goal of being successful. It's being a common goal of being successful personally as an individual, because being an individual success breeds team success. But you got to get everybody on the same page. And some people don't want to be on the same page. So what are you going to do about that? So it's always like a chess match, or in my case, probably checkers, where just trying to get things right and get our coaches to get our kids right at the right time of year, because that's an extremely difficult job.
Yeah.
And I mean, our women won 10 championships in a row, 5 straight years, indoors and out. And I don't know how we did it. I really don't, because there were days that I thought we were either the girls were going to walk out the door or the coaches were going to walk out the door, or both, because it was very hard. It was very hard for everybody. And then once you're winning and you have a streak going, then everybody hates you. Nobody wants you to come to their meets. Everything is made difficult for you. Okay, well, we'll just do our thing and see what happens. But it's definitely a challenge. Yeah. If I can make a recommendation, and this is a recommendation for everybody. So the last week, my wife, Donna, and I have been watching The Captain on ESPN. And it's about Derek Jeter. It's about Derek Jeter. And Derek Jeter was the captain for the New York Yankees. He retired in 2014. And every time I watch his show, and we're not done with it yet, but he does everything. When he said he would do something, I'm like, yep, he got it, because it wasn't about him. It was never about him. It was always about the team. And one thing he said, look, keep distractions to a minimum. Yeah, keep distractions to a minimum. Give your best effort every day. Don't bring drama up in the clubhouse. I mean, same thing we all do, is we all talk about as coaches. But I encourage everybody to watch that show, because that is what any athlete out there should strive to be like Derek Jeter, because he did it without ego. Everybody's got ego. I got ego. You guys got ego. Everybody's got ego. But you talk to him and it's about the team. At the end of the day, it's okay. Is this going to help the team or is this going to hurt the team? And everything that he did was to gear his team, his teammates to be better. And if somebody comes along like Alex Rodriguez and it doesn't work out so well, then there's a problem.
Yeah.
And so watch that show and see the nuance of how Derek Jeter developed and how different relationships over time, managers over time, either made or broke them as a team. And it's a phenomenal look at the superlative athlete who was all about the team. And I agreed with him 100% on everything that he said. There's a little bit of cussing in there, so parents, deal with that.
Yeah.
But there's some cussing in there, but it's for the greater good, I think.
Oh wow, for sure.
Do you, and at all those conference championships, did you get rings? Do you have all those rings? Do you have banners? And where are they? Is that
My wife, bless her heart, she made me a box, ring box. Then she made me another ring box, and it had frosted glass on it. It's really nice. After a while, I'm not a ring person. I mean, I have my wedding band, and I'm just not jewelry. I have my crucifix and my St. Thomas Aquinas medal, but it's just not a big deal to me. And after a while, you just kind of like, okay. So I would get a ring, which I still would get a ring, and I just put them in the box, or I put it in the case, or leave it in the box. And I think it's upstairs. I don't have any evidence in this house that I was a college coach. It's kind of tucked away. A couple of athletes, when I retired, they gave me photos of themselves, which that's what I want to do every day, is look at photos of them, because I only got to see them every day of the year. So now I get to see them even more so. So Sonny Hilton gave me, he was a first team All-American indoors and outdoors this year. He gave me a photo of him, which I have up. And then Matilde CS and Avery Ellis Byerly, two of our multis, they gave me a gift that said your two favorite multis on it, which I told every kid that they were my favorite multi, and then I'd see somebody 5 minutes later and tell them they were my favorite multi. So, it's just my way of entertaining myself during the day.
For sure.
So
for sure. Awesome. You've had some great stops at Virginia and Clemson and stuff. No need to go into detail on those stops. I'm just curious, was there a couple of mentors at those two stops and those two locations that kind of molded you to put you in the position to be that head coach at Stephen F. Austin?
Yeah, I think one of the first mentors that I had was probably Brian Monshine. And I probably give him the biggest credit of anybody. He was an assistant coach at the University of Virginia. He was a All-American decathlete. Okay. When he was in college, he went to the University of Pennsylvania, and his dad was a longtime coach there, and he was on the Visa decathlon team, I think. But he really kind of got me interested in the throws, and he taught me how to recruit. He taught me how to coach. He taught me how to interact with young men and women, because he was always fun. He was really smart, always fun, and I would listen to him on the phone with recruits, and he really made it special talking to them. And because he was just being himself. So that's one thing I learned, is just to be yourself. So people knew when they come to your school that's who they got, and so I think he was probably the biggest mentor that I had at Clemson. I think Ron Garner. Now, Brian is he's coaching at a Division II school now in Minnesota. I haven't talked to him in a few years. Ron Garner at I had a lot of influences at Clemson. Ron Garner at Clemson, Randy Bungard at Clemson, Wayne Kaufman, my head coach at Clemson, and on and on. I mean, Bob Pollock, who was a phenomenal men's coach at Clemson, were great mentors to me. And it's one of those things where you take a little piece from somebody and you add it to who you are as a coach, and it could be the smallest thing. Coach Pollock. What impressed me about him is he was a head coach who was the first guy in the office and he was the last to leave every day, and he worked really, really hard. And I always told myself that's the kind of coach that I want to be, and I tried to do my best to work hard at it every single day, and so those were the kinds of things that we took from John Gamble, our head strength coach at the University of Virginia. He was one. And then just great mentors and coaches that I've come across over the years that I say, man, I wish I could be more like you. Brian Blutrick, who is now at the University of Oregon. He came to North Carolina years ago in the 90s. And when I was at Virginia, he was at Carolina. And I was like, oh man, I got to get out of this league with Brian here, because I knew he was going to be special. And, that guy's had 25 individual national champions. I mean, golly, man, give us all, help us all a little bit, help us out a little.
Share some secrets,
please. But he was going to be special. Dave Woolman, the longtime coach at SMU, Dan Paff, who was at the University of Texas, LSU. I mean, I learned a lot from him. He allowed me to come down for 3 days and basically go through his file cabinet and copy anything that I wanted, talk to him about anything I wanted. And I mean, I spent 3 days with him, and I mean, it just blew my mind what I didn't know, and still don't know to this day. But that's the kind of person Dan Paff is. I mean, he'll open his mind up to anybody that is interested in crawling inside, because it's a pretty thick gray matter that's up in his head. So
for sure, you have to chisel away for sure. So well, thanks for sharing that. Now let's get into the now, did you throw at Stephen F. Austin?
No, I was I did not throw, but in high school. So I went to the University of Texas. I went there for 1.5 years.
Oh, you did?
I did. I went to the University of Texas, and I wasn't a good enough athlete. I competed in high school for a little private school in Fort Worth called Fort Worth Country Day. And,
really?
I went to Country Day, and then so I went then to UT, and of course I wasn't a good enough athlete to compete at UT. And after 1.5 years, the folks at UT felt like I should probably go do my schooling someplace else. So they asked me to leave, and then I ended up going to SFA. It was one of those things that it was Christmas time, and I had a great Christmas. And Christmas was on a Sunday, and the mail came back on Monday. I got a letter in the mail saying, kind of like your services are no longer required. So, but to be honest with you both, I think that was the very best. God has a plan for everybody, and that door closed and another opened, because I went home and washed dishes in my mom's restaurant for 6 months. Went to summer school at SFA, and then two of my old coaches back in high school at Country Day, Colonel Ross Kerr and Sal Aniceto, asked me to come work for them. So I took a fall off. No, well, when I was in school, and my high school coaches said, "Hey, you want to come back and help out?" And I said, this might be an opportunity for me to make a decision that if this is something that I want to do, because I really wasn't sure what I wanted to coach, but they both needed help. They were both at two different schools. And so I helped my high school football coach, Sal Anacito, at Country Day that fall. And then Colonel Rossiter. And Colonel Rossiter was a legend. Every boy at Country Day has a Colonel Rossiter story, and there was even a movie made about him by one of his former athletes who's now a filmmaker. But the Colonel asked me to come help him for about a month or so at a little school in Arlington. I'm trying to remember the name of it.
Oak Ridge.
Gosh, Oak Ridge. Yeah, and it was at in an old high school, so it was just getting off the ground. And so I helped him for a month. And when I went back to school, I said, I need to focus back on my grades, and it's really important. And so I did great in the classroom, and I coached Sepsic, who was a phenomenal, great coach here in the 80s and the 90s. Asked me, he wanted me to be his GA, and I said, Coach, I really have to focus on my grades. So, I was studying Friday nights. The only day I took off was Saturday, and but that kind of dedication to my education allowed me to get accepted into the University of Virginia, because I had no particular success in the GREs. It was mainly my grades. So that's kind of how it happened.
So how did you cross paths with Coach Sefik? And did you just go ahead?
I was in some of his classes. So he
while he was teaching
theory. Okay. Yeah. And so he said, "Hey, why don't you come out? Why don't you come hang out?" And I was kind of interested in sports photography at the time. So I did some of that. That got too expensive, so I had to find other hobbies to do. And he asked me, he said, "Hey, do you want to come out and help?" And I was just like, "Coach, I really appreciate it, but it's just not something I can do right now. But, if you want to talk about the philosophy of the throw or actually philosophy of training athletes and coaching, they don't get much better than Coach Glenn Sepsic. Just really, really good, and just had a masterful way of teaching. He was just really good at what he did. And I would have to say, you asked me about Virginia and about Clemson. He was a great mentor to me as just a student with a coach that you had right there in front of you that was teaching you every day.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious, what was your first assignment? Did he give you an event and say, "Hey, go learn it and coach it," or did he just kind of show everything at you?
I have no idea. I don't know what it was. That was like 40 years ago. I don't know what I had for breakfast this morning. I don't know. He went, but when he got up in front of the class, what I remember is he was very thoughtful. He was he was scientific, but not to the point where you just kind of shook your head and just went blank. Your brain went blank. But he would talk about the inner workings of the coach-athlete relationship and building confidence in an athlete and the sports psychology aspect of it. And he was just really, really good at it.
Wow. I'm having deja vu, because him and I are pretty good friends, and hearing your philosophy and coaching, I'm sitting here going, man, Glenn said the same stuff. And, the multi-background, Glenn being a graduate assistant at Texas and stuff. I had no idea that there was such a strong connection with y'all too.
Yeah. Well, it's just been years and years. And, he, a couple of years, about 2 or 3 years ago, I think we brought him back to SFA, and he was inducted into the Jacks of Honor, and a lot of his former athletes came back, and it was really a special moment for Coach and his athletes, because they loved him and still do today, and they're all, they all do a great job of keeping up with each other. So that was a special moment to have him back on campus. And then I'll hear from him every now and again, or he'll hear from me. So yeah, we do have that. We have an inner kind of interesting connection there.
Yeah, I'd like to see y'all throwers compete against each other in the Southland for at least 1 year.
Well, there's been some great coaches. There's some really good coaches that I've had the opportunity to compete against over the years. And Coach Sepsic and I never had a chance to go against each other, but there are a lot of great coaches in this state, and there's a lot of great coaches across the country. And I think you saw that with the World Championship results and how well the throwers did for the United States. I think it was just a phenomenal championship. I wish it was an Olympic year because that was a difference maker.
Yeah, that has to give you a little bit of pride to see what's going on currently in the U.S. with Krauser doing what he's doing in Worlds, but also, the hammer's coming on board and becoming very popular among our U.S. throwers, where in the past we wouldn't even medal at the Worlds and we won it, on the boys and girls side, but also in the javelin as well. It has to be evolving. Do you think that's because we're getting better youth coaches and getting these kids earlier introduction into the sport?
I would say yes. I mean, you yourself are trying to enhance the popularity of the hammer, and you got kids out there who are dying for coaching, that are just dying for some attention, that need some attention, that aren't getting that attention. And I can't tell you how many athletes, high school athletes, over the course of the last several years, this, because of the throws factors, they're not getting coached at the high school or junior high school level. So what are we doing? Well, fortunately, there's coaches like yourselves who are doing this out of the love of the sport and are really taking the time and the energy to teach kids how to throw the javelin, to put a hammer in a kid's hand and say, okay, you're going to turn 2 or 3 times on the left heel and the ball the right foot. You're going to push the ball left, and then you're going to throw it out in the field. And it's been wonderful to see, as you say, Coach Hayes, about the direction and the development, because the U.S. has been behind in the hammer for some time, and it's always trying to achieve in the javelin. The javelin seems to be just a little bit out of reach, But I had an observation once, and I'd like you guys to tell me if you think I'm wrong about this. And the observation is that because there's so many young men and women who have come out of high school and they have to learn the hammer, I think that we as coaches have spent more hours coaching the hammer than maybe coaching the discus. And I think in a lot of ways the hammer has been improved, but the discus maybe not to the point that it should be.
Interesting.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because if I'm having an athlete and I have to teach this athlete, so they're a shot putter, discus thrower, and hammer thrower, and I'm going to try to coach that kid. And Maggie Ewan, even though Maggie Ewan would never want to be coached by me, but I mean, she was a phenomenal shot disc hammer. So how do you coach that? I mean, what do you do? I talked to Brian Blutrick about that, and they had their plan. But I think in many respects, we took time away from the discus and we put more effort into the hammer, because the hammer's indoors event and it's an outdoor event. So when it came in as a collegiate event, And now more and more in the high schools, not enough, but it needs to get into more in high schools. I think that I think the discus kind of took a back seat a little bit but that's in the college. That's in college. That's not so much in high school. But if you find an athlete that has the look and the build and the athleticism, and you love coaching the hammer, man, take that kid and teach that kid the hammer, because they need it, and they're just begging for coaching.
Yeah. A couple of questions. Do you think glide shot put is dead? Okay, you don't have to answer.
Well, you know what? I mean, obviously, the biggest success has come with the rotational shot. I think some are more adept in the glide than they are in the rotational shot. And if I see that, then I'm going to coach that kid. I mean, we had a young lady that came into our program last year and this year, freshman, and Coach Glass teaching her to rotational. No, it wasn't her. It was another kid. So she came in. We tried to teach her. I tried to teach her for 1 year. He tried to teach her for 1 year the rotational, and she was just bombing it. It just wasn't going well. And finally, we all kind of got our heads together and said, "Hey, maybe she needs to go back to the glide." So what did she do? I mean, she threw over 15 meters of the glide this year, so she's somebody that's a good discus thrower. But sometimes it doesn't always work. The rotational shot doesn't always work. So it's just the way it is.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
yeah. When we interviewed Randy Matson, he said that spinning is cheating. Because we asked him about Rod Krauser, and he said, that spinning is cheating.
Yeah. Well, and that brought up another individual, Kevin Stewart. I mean, Kevin Stewart was one of our throwers most recently, and I had a great pleasure working with him for so many years. And he and his brother Cameron, who's now at SFA, I mean, they had their uncle Michael Carter. I mean, coaching them, and the Carter clan and the Carter family, and that was their success, went all the way down throughout the family. And Kevin and Cameron both were phenomenal. Were taught some phenomenal things at early ages. And, Kevin is one of those guys I left out, but he was a tremendous competitor and a really, really fine shot putter and even better discus thrower for us. And he got to the point and where he was gliding and he couldn't really handle it on his knee so much. So he moved to the rotational shot just so his knee could get through training and get through competition. So sometimes you're going from one to the other. And sometimes you might go from the glide to the rotational for one reason, and then from the rotational glide for another reason. But so it just depends. Yeah. You ask every person that question that comes on, is the glide dead?
It depends who I'm talking to. It depends who I'm talking. If they have street cred like yourself and Glenn and some other people, I would ask, just because I was curious to see what they would say with it and stuff. Because we coach a lot of kids, in high school, and their coaches, all they know is glide, but they don't teach it the right way. And you see kids that are more natural, especially volleyball players and maybe a couple of basketball players that are used to spinning around and stuff like that. So you see them do that and you're thinking, well, they do that a lot easier. So why not try rotation when they're, trying to be a thrower, but then all of a sudden you see them being coached to be a glider and it just doesn't seem to mesh. And that's the reason I asked. But then again, on the opposite side, you see some high school coaches who watch YouTube, and no disrespect, but then they're trying to teach rotational shot put to some kids, and that's not going as well as it should either. So,
Mhm.
so you know what I'm saying? So that's,
Yeah,
I
I
was
do.
just kind of curious.
I do. Well, I asked Dan Path one time, I said, Dan, how long would you stick with a rotational if you didn't think it was going to work? And he said, I can't remember. I think he just said a few weeks. See, if they don't show something right away, just go back to the Clyde.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I first started, it took me a year and a half with Kenneth McKinley from Yoakum to realize that he was not a rotational guy. He was a glider.
Yeah.
And, you know, it stinks, but that's just sometimes you have to take chances, and sometimes you have to take a leap of faith. And fortunately, Kenneth was very, very coachable, and he did what his coach wanted him to do. And, but it all worked out pretty well in the end.
Awesome.
I think so.
Awesome. Well, Coach, what a tremendous honor. You are just one of my favorite people, and this has been tremendous. Thank you for educating us. Thank you for sharing your experience with us. We wish you much success in your retirement and whatever God has in store for you. You know, go enjoy it.
I will, and you know, I just can't thank you both enough for what you do for our sport, what you do for these young men and women, and it's so much needed. I know I keep harping on it, but you two are two great individuals.
Thanks.
And I'm just really happy that you all are on the scene and taking a lot of these young throwers and these young coaches under your wing and helping them to be better and to be better people, be better individuals, be better students, be better quality character people, and helping them to be good throwers at the end of the day is really special.
We're trying.
So
it's a lot of fun. How old is our little, I got a 6-year-old that plays softball, and mom is a friend of mine. So she threw the shot put for us. And I told her she's going to be my first really good javelin thrower. So now I need to get a lot better. I don't know a lot about the javelin, but she's going to be my person at the age of 6.
So,
and she's 6,
but she's 7. She's 7.
Yeah.
And she plays a lot of softball. So
why don't you just get her right out of the womb next time? Janelle? I mean, golly, man.
So let me preface this. So Janelle is the youth coordinator, so she handles everybody 13 and younger, and she just had her first All-American this past year. 13-year-old boy.
Congratulations.
He threw a 10-foot PR in North Carolina last weekend in the distance.
Oh, that's awesome.
Out of 84 13-year-old boys, he gets 3rd place. He throws 100
That's awesome.
feet.
Yeah.
I mean, what?
Well, I take it all back then. My joke just backfired on me. So yeah, I was trying to be cute. I was trying to be funny, and look what you did. You got a champion. So
we have some young ones. She handles all the young ones, and then I handle the old ones as well. So just holler at us. We would love to have you out to practice and, you know, give us some pointers and watch some of the kids and stuff. So anything you want to do.
Just let me know where to go, and you never know. I'll show up. And I'll see what you guys are doing. That sounds fun.
We'll take some tips.
You can handle the youth coach. We can need to that 6-year-old from a glider to a rotation.
Well, if they're,
we were just a step back. We just stepped through it.
Look at, well, you know, if they have a baby's bottle in one hand and a shot in another, then I think you got them a little too young. But
no.
They can never too young to be throwers, can they?
No, especially when they look out there and they see all those kids running, they don't want to do that. They want to come over.
Yeah.
We do a good job of matching the hair bow with the uniform, and she does a good job of that.
Good. Good. See?
Good.
That's really good.
So next year we're going to implement the testing. So we'll let you know on the squats and the clean.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I would start with a broom handle maybe for the 6-year-old, 7-year-old. I think that would be right. Just get the form down.
Yeah.
Just get the form down.
Maybe
well, I appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me. And thanks. Since I'm a retired coach, thanks for not asking me specific technical questions or anything like that, because I don't think I'd remember anything. But thank you guys.
No worries. No worries.
I appreciate you, and give Cammie, tell her old college coach sends his love, and you guys take care.
I will. She sure was bummed not to get to come to your retirement.
Well, it was a great turnout. We had about 100 people there, and or 125, I think.
Oh wow!
And I was, I was so worried about it because I didn't think anybody would show up, and I didn't want to do it. And my wife and Matt Seal, my financial advisor, who was one of our alums, he put it all together. They just told me to shut up and show up. Yeah. So that's what I did. And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. So great to see so many people from the past. Well, then y'all take care, and appreciate y'all having me. Thank you so much.
Problem. Thank you so
Means
much,
a lot.
Sir. Appreciate it.
Okay. Y'all take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
We would like to thank Coach Olson for being on. After listening to him talk and recording this, it is truly obvious to me of why Stephen F. Austin won all those national championships and kicked everybody's ass in the Southland Conference for all those years, just because of the foundation that he led, not that he led, the foundation that he planted, and just stack after stack, brick after brick, athlete after athlete, whether, they were coming in from, East Texas or Houston or Central Texas or South Texas. They were a piece of the puzzle that continued the train running down the track. And I just love that analogy about the track. That is so true. The train never goes back unless it necessarily has to. And people are get on and off. And that's the turnaround every 4 years of track and field and college athletics and stuff. And to just keep moving forward, as he's able to do that. And by far, probably considered one of the best track and field coaches in the Southland Conference history, but also probably in the U.S. And I love the fact too that he was not, the accolades of being a great high school or college thrower. That that someone took a chance on him in a classroom and said, "Hey, I need you to come be my GA," and that just lit the fire to the success he had 35 years later down the road.
Well, and part of that success as a team it wasn't ever about him.
Yeah.
He said he didn't get in the business of his jumpers or sprint coaches. Yeah. He let them coach, and he just led by example and let all of those coaches do their recruiting and do their thing. Mm-hmm. But he stressed the family and the community and the culture of the team, and that helps. And then he even said too, you talked about kids from East Texas recruiting. He looked for kids that had grit and hard work.
That's what,
he may not have been all the state championships or all this, but he looked for those kids with grit and hard work, and then put them on teams, helped to breed that success, and they walk away with national championships and conference championships or whatever that may be. So,
yeah. And also I like that the aspect of the analytics, the testing aspects of it too, because if somebody wasn't reaching marks, whether it was a distance in throwing or maybe a time in sprinting, he would relate it back maybe to their testing and stuff like that from where they were 3 months ago compared to they are now. And I think sometimes we get away from those analytics and we don't rely on them enough and trust in what the numbers are saying to create a really good positive result for the athletes down the road, especially in your throwing events as well. And I like the fact too that he was hands-on with that. And you have a lot of coaches who, can coach the event, but have trouble with the strength and conditioning side of it. And definitely, he did not have to do that.
Well, he talked about that number. So is it something physically as to why you're not moving up, or is there an emotional, which is a huge part of a college athlete or any athlete? So physically you haven't been injured and these numbers aren't going up. So what's going on? Yeah. Then you talk to him and built that relationship saying, well, what's going on? Because I see you in the weight room, I see you working, but this isn't moving forward.
Yeah.
So which is huge.
Yeah. And just want to point out that he won the Southland Conference Coach of the Year 29 times. He was the NCAA South Regional Conference 1 year, two national titles, 36 All-Americans, and 226 Southland Conference champions at Stephen F. Austin. 226. And there's schools having trouble to get one.
Yeah. That's impressive. And those are from throwers to sprinters to whatever, because he...
And 23 years of work. That's basically, he won conference every year he was there. He had one conference.
Either indoor or outdoor. Yeah. And the men's or women's.
Yes.
You think about it, there were 4 opportunities all year.
Yeah.
Men's and women's indoor, outdoor.
Mm-hmm.
And then, men's indoor, outdoor, women's indoor. Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. He won.
Woo!
He win one every year.
He win one?
He win one. You erase that one, please.
All right, let's thank our sponsors for season 5, Texas Track and Field Coaches Association. Go to ttfca.org. Check out all the good stuff as we kind of get into an off season, but indoor season is just right around the corner. Forthrows.com. Use the code TalkingThrows10 to get 10% off. If you're looking for some implements. Porta-Circle. Go to porta-circle.com. Again, use the code TalkingThrows10. As we do start getting in off season, and somewhere in the world, someone will have winter, and you can go inside and get you some drills. And if you're in the Austin area, Ready Up AD, go to readyupad.com and check out all the things that Zach Phillip is doing. And then look at our website. Lessons going on wherever you're at in Texas. We can find someone to work with you. If you got a young kid that needs something to do, bring them to me. We'll teach them how to throw something other than objects at their parents. Some shots, some discus, some javelin, and then we got coaches everywhere else.
Yeah, and remind everybody about Lifting DFW. The commercial will be coming out hopefully here in the next week or so. The website will be up. We're looking to start selling those trailers out pretty soon. Remind everybody about the shopping page. Just go on to thornfactory.com and buy you some cool apparel. And just thanks for the support. Thanks for everybody listening throughout the world. Thanks for the downloads, and thanks for the support on YouTube. We go to these meets and we hear some feedback, so we do that, just to make an impact in our small little podcast. And also too, if there's anybody that we need to be on that we haven't had on yet, just send us a message and we'll track them down to get them on. Thank y'all.
That's it. Thanks.